I want to share with you the experience that has changed my whole life and has given me the chutzpah to stand up here and talk to you in such a way about the power of love. It was an experience that took place with Jesus. And I don't belong to any church because for me none of the Christian churches in any way represent the wild rebel and revolutionary of divine love in action that I know my beloved to be. And I've studied in all of the mystical systems and I revere them all. But when push comes to shove and at the end of the night, there is always one face that is staring at mine. And it is the face of the man called Jesus who gave everything that he was to birth a new way of love and for the entire planet, not just for Christians, but for every single human being. And this way of love has nothing whatever to do with religion and everything to do with an overwhelming experience of the absolute, crazy, passionate love of God and the desire to return that love and to realize that love in communion with all beings. This has nothing to do with religion and everything to do with an experience that changes you. What happened to me was that when my father was dying in the place that I was born in India, this was about 10 years ago, I was invited by my mother to go and be with him. And of course, my mother is a very ferocious woman. You never dare to disobey my mother. I strongly advise against it. And I went to my father's deathbed, and I spent a miraculous week with him, speaking of many, many things, but most of all experiencing the tremendous love that we had between each other. We spoke a great deal of Jesus, and I realized that I'd been all around the world meeting the Dalai Lama and other great sages, but that in my own father I'd had a sage whom I had patronized. So it was a very humbling moment for me to feel the majesty and wisdom of my own father. I came to India on a Tuesday, and on the Sunday I went to church, in a church that I'd been a page boy as a child. And I'd had to stand with my bottom facing the altar all the time because the day before I'd run up and down a red staircase and slid down it and made these red patches all over my pants. So I was laughing to myself. It was the feast of Christ the King, and an Indian priest gave an amazing sermon on Jesus in which he said, Jesus is a mystical king of the world, of the cosmos, not because of his miracles and not because of the faith that was instituted in his name, but because he had the mad love to give everything and to give everything to birth a new world. And because I was so open to reality through really being with my father in this extremity and feeling his love and loving him back, I heard those words in a way that I'd never heard any preacher's words, and they went through me like a spear of fire. And when he sat down, I looked up at the statue of the resurrected Christ at the end of the church, and it became alive for 20 minutes. And I stood in the church looking at him alive, surrounded by this blazing golden light. And from his heart erupted like a volcano of golden light power, which seemed to catch a knife and stab my heart open to reveal that a smaller volcano in my heart was longing to return to him. So this volcanic love fire came towards me, and a smaller volcano came out of my heart towards him. And beloved and lover and love became one supreme, ecstatic experience of divine passion. And that experience was an experience of the undiluted, pure, naked force and power of love. And that experience was of a force so overwhelming that it is, in fact, the creative and evolutionary force of the whole cosmos. It is the birthing force of all the universes. And if you connect with it through passionate devotion and experience, you can become a birther through its grace of wholly new ways of being and doing everything. What happened was that after the experience, I was taken out into the Indian noon, and there was a man without arms or legs in a puddle, with the most tragic and lonely expression on his face. And I went to pick him up and to give him money and to help him and to see that he was helped. I picked him up and I gazed into his eyes, and I saw that just as I had seen the beloved burning in ecstatic love fire at the end of the church, now I was seeing the same beloved's eyes staring at me through the eyes of this absolutely lonely, destroyed, derelict person. And at that moment I understood beyond thought that the only reason we are given to experience the love of God is so that we can see that love burning in everyone and long to express it in every way that can be most powerful and helpful. But as I held the young man, I had this very fierce message from the Christ, which absolutely changed my life and made me a sacred activist and made me the architect of this vision of sacred activism that I'm trying to give the world in my new book, The Hope, and that drove me for many, many years to go out again and again and try and wake people up to what is happening in the world and how we can transform ourselves. And what I heard was this, and I'm reading it to you because I believe this is what love is saying to us both at this tragic, terrifying, menacing, all-important moment of our destiny in which everything is at stake. You have been playing with light all these years that you believed you were making spiritual progress. You have been exploiting the mystical teachings and experiences you've been given for yourself, your career, your own selfish delight. Don't you understand that the purpose of everything that you have been through is to make you a servant of divine love in action in the world? Don't you realize that if the grace has opened up the divine realms to you, it is so that you can be devoted and humble enough to dedicate all of your thoughts and emotions and actions and resources to the ending of the horror that you see before you? The world is burning to death in the fires of greed and ignorance. All of animal and human life is now threatened. And this young man that you see before you is one of billions in anguish. See behind him and around him the burning forests, the polluted seas, the vanishing tigers and polar bears. The divine is being crucified again and again by a humanity obsessed with its own needs and driven increasingly by a crazed and suicidal hunger to dominate and control and exploit everything. Everything you are and everything you do from this moment on must help human beings awaken to their inner divinity and to its responsibilities of urgent sacred action. The only questions that you will be asked when you cross the waters of death are, what did you do while the world was burning? How did you work to heal the horror of a world on fire? And what did you love enough to risk and give your life for.